Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Rachel Jones, and I'm a local sales coach helping small businesses with their fractional sales management or individual coaching. And I'm really excited today that I've got Chris Fox with Startup World Cup of Arizona. Hey, Chris, can you give us a little bit of information about what it is that you do and a little bit about your background?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me on today, Rachel. I really appreciate it. But yeah, Startup World Cup of Arizona, we are the largest pitch competition for startup founders in the world. A big focus on technology, but pretty agnostic depending on like the industry that they're in. We're in over 100 cities this year, bringing it to Phoenix, Arizona for the first time ever. And partnered up with another local ecosystem development group called Freeway Phoenix. Um, to pair our Startup World Cup event with her Fall Technology Summit this September.
That's awesome. Now, what inspired you to focus on like tech world in Phoenix specifically and get involved with the Startup World Cup?
So for me, I used to have a startup of my own. It's called Bambox Produce. So I was in the ag tech space. We did vertical farming and basically grew more nutrient dense produce using 98% less resources than would be uh, utilized in outdoor conventional agriculture. And at that point, this was like 2016, so a little ways back. But building the company, it's a journey, right? It's a process. And you've done so much of yourself into it, and at the time, like when you're building your company, you're spending so much time on it. So it's difficult sometimes to like know what resources are available, or even have the time to go out and look for things, or look for people to help you with problems that you don't know. And so that's what I felt at the time. I felt pretty isolated. Then COVID happened. I got out of the startup community for a few years, went into mortgages and did some other things. But when COVID happened, I was in the middle of transitioning my 1099 employees and my interns over to W-2 employees. So I was like crash coursing myself on HR laws. Like the biggest fear that I had was like getting a lawsuit and having all of this work that I put in over the past 4 years get shut down because of something like that. So I was crash coursing myself on that. We ended up having to shelve the business. Just didn't have the bandwidth. We were bootstrapped at the time. Like I said, got out of the startup community for a little bit, but then with my new role, which actually now I do business consulting for an HR tech firm. So it all kind of came full circle. I got reintegrated to the startup community and just saw the growth and development that had occurred while I wasn't a part of it. And it was really inspiring. So I was looking for ways to contribute to that growth and development, create opportunities for founders that may have, been in the same shoes that I was wearing a few years back. Um, and then kind of out of nowhere, a buddy of mine that I played football with at Chaparral High School in Scottsdale, he became a partner at Pegasus Tech Ventures in San Francisco, and we reconnected. And he asked me if I'd be interested in helping him find a home for Startup World Cup here in Phoenix. And once I saw that there's $1 million investment prize and get the global exposure that some of the founders that go on to the final round in San Francisco, that they experience, I just thought that would be a benefit to the community. So originally I was trying to find a home for it with a different group that wasn't getting any traction, changed the talk track up, and I guess kind of reluctantly I found myself moving down the path of coordinating this whole event. Um, and we're pretty excited for the impact that it will make on the community. Like I said, we partnered with Phoenix Freeway and Daniela over there and Startup AZ to create an event and experience that I think Phoenix is ready for, and that hasn't uh, that we've never had before as well. So we'll have a hackathon at the end of it, a modern career fair with upskilling workshops for people that want to get into the tech industry but maybe don't know how to navigate the job, finding the job and the job application process. And then we'll also have the pitch competition running concurrently, so you kind of get a full snapshot of the new incubating innovations, the ones that have gotten funding and are now hiring and growing within the state, and really just meant to be a celebration of Arizona's innovation culture.
What I love about events like this is it makes you not so isolated, like you were saying, because I remember being in startup world and my dad is in HR. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I remember calling him one time and be like, no one told me I would have to deal with this. It's not in my job description. He said, well, you own the company. You have to deal with that. And I was like, no. So I think that the great thing is it's an opportunity to learn with people. It's a way for people, you get to get connections and get really authentic with other business owners about some of the hurdles that come with that. Now, what do you expect of the ecosystem and the tech world? Like when you're presenting these pitch competitions, do you expect they're going to be like a spinoff from there on kind of people continuing to stay connected?
Yeah, so actually the event will recur every year, so we'll do it every fall. We've got a spring tech talent summit already planned for, I believe, April of next year. And yeah, we plan to grow this, and given that this is the inaugural, excuse me, the inaugural year in Phoenix, the first year that it's here in Phoenix, we kind of had a shorter on ramp, but moving into 2025, we'll be doing workshops throughout the year to really keep that engagement high, and where we see ourselves as being that like level 2 funnel for founders within the community. Once you started your idea and you get to the point that's like, okay, what resources are available if you run into those first challenges? We want to be the go-to kind of resource hub that can connect to the rest of the valley.
Okay. Now, what type of workshops are you anticipating doing for the community?
So my background is in sales and kind of public speaking, the people dynamics. So definitely workshops surrounding that, pitch coaching, media coaching, things like that. But I'm also big on like mental health and the resiliency that it takes to be a founder and to grow your company and not give up, because there are so many naysayers out there. Even sometimes within your own family, like you can have people that don't quite see the vision, and that can be discouraging for founders. So like to have that mental toughness and resiliency, and to be able to discern, is this actually worth my time? Is this not? Are they right? All of those types of things. So that's the mental health game really is where my skill set comes in. But aside from that, we're building out a community of mentors to offer like more individualized coaching throughout the year. We plan to start an incubator next year as well to help some of these early ideas get some traction, get to the point that you can actually, start to formulate a company around the ideas. Just because imagine how many people there are out there in the world that have an idea but never act on it. So really what we do is activating the innovation within our community.
And I think that the great part about what I hear from the startup community and the mentoring now is, 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't really talked about when people failed, or it was just like hushed and shoved under the rug. And I think now if there's a conversation of like, you tried that and now we pivot, but that's a hard thing to not feel like a failure in that moment, and to have a safe space where it is an incubator and you do have mentors and you have other people going through it, makes you not feel as alone, and that like, oh, this is going to take a few tries before I get it right. And what I built in my head, when I was noodling over it, is not always how it goes. It's pretty much never how it goes. You're going to have to pivot in order to make that business a success.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I can speak to that directly. So like for me, after having the startup experience that I had pre-COVID, like I said, we had to shelve the business, and we haven't quite dissolved it yet. Maybe I'm still holding on because of that fear of failure feeling, and it's so prevalent within our society. We look at failures as that. People are kind of shunned for it sometimes. Like, and we celebrate the winners, but you never hear about the stories that go into what makes the winners a winner. Like once they have like the Elon Musks of the world, or founders of big successful companies, there's inevitably many failures that have gotten them to that point. So for me, when I started to reintegrate within the startup community here, one of the first events that I went to was at the end of Phoenix Startup Week. JamPad was a group that used to be pretty prevalent here in the Valley, and I'd gone there and I literally had like social anxiety going into the event. I almost didn't go in because, like I said, it was the first startup event that I'd gone to after having my own startup, and then now I didn't. So it was like an identity crisis feeling, I guess.
Yeah.
Almost didn't go in, and then finally I went in, and I didn't even have a talk track for it. It was probably the most socially awkward I've been in my life. But what it taught me by the end of it was that I had some practice at a couple of rounds. So what do you do, right? You get that question, and talking through all this, by the end of it, I developed kind of a talk track and realized that everybody there was accepting of that, and like was so curious about like what my experience was during that process, what I learned, what
Right.
they can take away from my experience. And from there, that actually sparked an idea to create like a podcast called Failed Founders Podcast. We got like the domain for it, and
Yep.
that never really launched. But you know, I think leading with those failure experiences and understanding that like leading with vulnerability is like, you know, the best way to communicate and do business and get other people to be vulnerable, to actually share those genuine experiences. Like that's how you acquire knowledge and acquire um, experience without having to go through it yourself. So having a culture within the community that like celebrates failures, fail fast, you know, iterate quickly. It's kind of like the lean startup method. Um, you know, is really what we're trying to help establish here, you know, as well. You're absolutely right. Having that incubator space and that mentor community, it's where you, it's safe for you to I guess talk about it that first time, that failure story. I think just opens up the floodgates after that. So
Yeah. I heard a speaker a couple years ago, and she told me growing up that her dad, instead of telling them, "Hey, what did you do that was a win this week?" or something like that, he would ask what their failure was for the week, and then he would high five. And if it was a really good one, he would take them out for ice cream. And the point of that for her was like, I'm so much more willing as an adult to try things and be like bad at it or not be like good at it. And I think that narrative is where the startup community is going. And if you do decide to restart your podcast, I will volunteer to do it, because I hardcore failed a lot of things in my small businesses that I did. And I tell people now when I'm helping them and coaching them, like, I have hit a lot of roadblocks in my life and I have fallen flat on my face. So here's the ways that I did that, if that helps you avoid those potholes. So
100%.
I think it's just shared knowledge is going to be what helps people launch a little bit faster and be able to avoid some of those pitfalls.
Yeah. Together
Now,
we're better than we are individually, you know.
right. Now, you mentioned that there's going to be that tech talent. So are you anticipating that several of these startups are going to be looking for that talent and for people to match up throughout the kind of the conference?
Yeah. So a big emphasis that we have is job seekers, like especially if you're transitioning from a non-tech job to a tech job, and not only that, but a startup tech job. It's a completely different environment. And a lot of people don't necessarily know like how to go into those interviews, because it's such a different environment than what they're used to. So the Tech Talent Summit is really meant to provide you know, kind of a safe space, panels, workshops from leaders within the community that have founded companies here and are scaling their companies here. So there's a few different points there are a few different outcomes that we're looking for from that. One is job placement. Two, bringing the like most skilled workers to the most promising startups, like, and being that connected there. But then three, encouraging startups to not leave once they've reached their success, to not leave Arizona, to hire from within Arizona, because that's what we need, is that reinvestment within the community to develop the skill set, the workers, and the value of the startups as a whole, long term. You know, so what we've been, some of the challenges that we've been facing in Arizona, it's such a transient community. You know, everybody here is transient. I think because of that, it leaves us in kind of like an identity crisis mode, and that's sort of where we've become comfortable existing within. There's so much talent, so much resources here. It's just all kind of siloed in pockets, and so we're looking at, you know, this event as a way to help to eliminate some of the barriers on those silos and sort of be like the glue that brings the resource community together.
Okay. And if there is a startup that's listening that wants to participate, what are kind of the parameters in order to participate in the pitch competition?
So in the pitch competition, we encourage all startups to apply. If you're excited about it, definitely apply. Get on stage, and at the very least, you'll have some really solid feedback from mentors and leaders within the community. We go through each application, we put it through a review process. So you know, some of the eyes that these startups are trying to attract will have the opportunity to see their pitch decks, whether they pitch on stage or not. We'll narrow it down to the top 10 to 12, depending on the number of applicants that we get between now and the end of August. And in order to apply, just go to suwcaz.com. The instructions are there. really the only restriction that we have on startups this year is that it can't be an idea or a business plan. We need you to be an established business. So you have to have your LLC formed. And that's pretty much it. From there, we'll look at like the strength of the team, product market fit. Is it venture fundable? Ideally, we want these high growth types of startups. But even if you're a brick and mortar or a lifestyle business, and $1 million investment could really take your company to the next step, we look at that as well.
Okay, and I'll put that website in the event description as well, so people can go ahead and reach that. Any other things that you want people to be aware as they're planning on coming?
Just sort of the structure of the event, I kind of mentioned the pitch competition, and we've got the Tech Talent Summit that's going to be happening concurrently. It'll be at Galvanize in downtown Phoenix for the after party and the awards ceremony, and this is not released yet, so this is kind of inside information, but our after party is going to be at the new Suns headquarters, Player 15 HQ, right across from Galvanize in downtown Phoenix. Really excited to be in there working with them. And then over the weekend for a full 48-hour stretch, kind of like an adult sleepover, but we'll be doing an AI hackathon as well, where engineers and the talent within our community will be, sorry, this is a little bit out of my technical aptitude.
Oh, you're good.
They'll be building like GPTs for bias detection, which is awesome, especially given our big news culture and stuff like that we're experiencing.
Yeah.
Right now. So pretty excited.
That's very cool. I've never taken part of a hackathon because I don't have the technical skills to do so, but I just want to be a fly on the wall watching this go down. Do they come prepared with their own teams, or do they split up into other teams? Like, do they get there and then everybody draws a name out of a hat, or somebody has an idea and then people are like, I want to join that team?
So it depends on the structure of the hackathon. I actually just did my first where I was a participant. This is at Venture Cafe like 2 weeks ago for the Innovate Phoenix Challenge by the City of Phoenix. So ours was on affordable housing and kind of hacking some solutions to address that social problem. There we were paired up randomly at the beginning of the day, so that's how we'll do it with this one as well. So attendees can expect to be paired up in teams. We'll break out into 10 different teams, and then each one comes up, hacks their way to their version of their solution to the problem. At the end, there'll be another little pitch competition where they'll have the opportunity to present their solutions to a panel of some of the local VCs here, with some prize money attached to that also. So.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear from you, like how that goes, because I'm wildly curious on that one. Well, to kind of bring this all home, you and I were talking right before we jumped on that we didn't know that each of us had a passion for mental health, holistic. I said that I was a crunchy granola hippie, and so I know that I've really talked a lot on this about mental health and with the founders. And what are you hoping to bring to the tech community in Phoenix? What are some professional goals that you're looking to have an impact with the community?
So my background, I was a yoga teacher for a while. I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the top yoga minds in the world, and so I'd really like to find a way to incorporate that into the professional environment. I think that mindfulness and taking like that sustainable approach to living is really beneficial and often overlooked in the business community. Like we were just talking at the beginning of this, how we both kind of like sell ourselves short in that regard, or just assume that it's for a different time or place. But getting those types of concepts front and center, I think, would go a long way in terms of just like ethical business practices, and for people to navigate stress, the relationships, communication at work, all of those types of things. So I'd like to find a way to incorporate that into workshops and stuff throughout the year. Through my current employer, as I mentioned earlier, everything kind of came full circle for me as well. We're an HR tech firm with just absolutely outstanding resources for founders and startups and established companies alike. It really goes across the board. Our CEO actually, how he kind of got his early success and became our CEO is he was a self-taught coder as well, and had a couple successful exits, invested in venture, and now he's running the company. So really want to just be able to leverage my own resources, skill sets to the benefit of the overall community to help put Arizona on the map. And we've been talking about how Arizona is this up and coming city for it seems like my entire life. So now it's time to step through the gates, step through that door, and really make our mark on the tech scene in America.
Yeah, the time is now. So, well, thank you, Chris, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. If there's anything we didn't address during our conversation, I would invite our viewers to drop it in the chat, and we'll go ahead. Chris and I will both keep an eye on it, and we'll get back to you. Thank you all for joining today.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rachel.